we know ways to improve it, assuming there's a conference next year, which we'll assume for now. Anyway, just been great to see everybody and have everybody get together and have the CFC family talk and communicate and work on our mutual problems. So it's good stuff. And thank you to the Sheraton and Pam's committee for putting this together. It's my pleasure to introduce our luncheon speaker. She is Cassie Gross, and Cassie is the Senior Manager for Marketing and Communications for Global Impact, an organization which raises funds for humanitarian needs around the world. In her role, Cassie leads strategic marketing and communication for advisory services, workplace giving, the CFC overseas, and Global Impact's own brand and thought leadership. Cassie has been directing marketing efforts for the CFC overseas for the last 4 years, during which time the campaign has generated more than $52 million in pledges. She has a BA in communications and 8 years of nonprofit marketing experience developing and implementing effective strategy through PR, public relations, community engagement, event coordination, and digital outreach on websites and social media. To date, she has led the marketing efforts for 11 major fundraising campaigns, raising $250 million for those in need. Please welcome Cassie Gross.
Thank you, Cal. It's my pleasure to be here today to talk to you about social media and how to really make your social media for CFC go further and really drive that impact. As he mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing and Communications at Global Impact, and I have to admit to you that I am not your ultimate social media nerd. I am more of a bigger picture marketing person, but I have learned along the way in the past 4 years of how to really make your social media impact your audience for the CFC. And so hopefully some of the tips that I give you today will be practical and effective for your own campaigns. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to walk you through a brief overview of social media first, just to keep us all on the same page, and then we'll go into talk about strategy, implementation. I'll give you some general tips that didn't fit in anywhere else in my presentation, and then we'll finish with some questions. Part of the reason I've been asked to do this is because, as I said, I've been doing this for the past 4 years, and we've gotten a little bit better every year, and this past year we just really had a huge increase of likes and engagement. We started doing social media for CFCO in 2010. That year, the DoD overseas really opened up the access for employees to be able to use social media platforms, so we decided that would be an effective communication tool for our marketing team to use as part of our CFCO marketing. So in 2010, we started on Facebook, and it's funny to go back to the posts. They have no pictures. There's like maybe a few sentences each post, and they're very boring. But we had to start somewhere. So in 2011, we picked it up a little bit, and we had more posts, started to be a little more engaging. In 2012, we ended the campaign with, I think, 1,000 likes. And again, we had started to post more, prioritize it within our marketing plan. And then in 2013, we decided to really focus in our strategy, and we started to see that social media was a way to reach an audience that we hadn't really reached for the CFC yet. So we really looked at our strategy, and we started planning forward, and I'm going to go through with you some of the things that we did. We went from 1,000 likes to more than 17,000 likes in one campaign year. So right now, I think we're at 17,600 something likes, which is pretty impressive, so that's why I'm up here to talk to you about it. You can see on the top chart there, that's from, those are likes from a year ago to now. And the bottom chart is actually pretty hard to see, but it's showing engagement as well. And I'm going to focus a lot on not just increasing your likes for your social media pages, especially on Facebook, but really your engagement. Your engagement gets you in front of more people, shows that your audience is participating, and it brings them closer to the point of actually making a donation and driving funds. So that's why I'm the one presenting in front of you, is because of kind of what Global Impact and the CFCO have done in the past year. Again, I want to start pretty quickly and just run through general social media to keep us all on the same page. According to Webster, social media is forms of electronic communication through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. Essentially, social media is an open forum for communication for people to participate in conversations over a variety of topics. People use social media for various reasons, and even within platforms, people use different platforms for various reasons. A lot of people use it to connect with family and friends. I'm assuming a lot of you probably do that. People get their lifestyle and entertainment news from social media. A lot of times you can find jobs or network with people through social media, like LinkedIn. And then a lot of people, there's a lot of products and services on social media. And in my opinion, the CFC fits more in that product services category. We're trying to encourage people to spend their money on charitable causes. And so we are, through social media, trying to affect people's behavior. Basically, everyone is on social media. The government agencies that you're working with are on there. OPM is on there. Curtis was just talking about tapping into our Facebook page with me. The DoD is there, USPS. Most government agencies have a presence. Other CFCs, most of you have a presence on social media. The charities that we're working for, individuals, I would say a lot of people in this room probably have some presence somewhere on social media, probably Facebook. And yes, even my grandma is on social media. Why is social media important? Why am I up here and encouraging you to do this for your CFC campaigns? One is because, as I just mentioned, this is where your audience is. People are spending an increasing amount of time on social media. There's an increasing number of people on social media. So if this is where our audience is, then we need to go there too to communicate our messages. It's a great way to communicate with a large audience, and you have full control over the messages that you're pushing out. Social media has this great kind of word of mouth multiplying effect. When you pass your messages, if someone else likes that, then their network is seeing it, and it can really grow very quickly. It's also a great way to connect people directly to e-giving. We found that that's one of our major pushes, is to get people to go to e-giving. That's one of our strategies outside of social media, so it's a great place. It's one click away to send them to e-giving, and then we're dropping our administrative costs. And finally, it's low cost, although like most things, if you put some money into it, it'll go a little bit further. But anyone can join social media. It's free to do that. And it can be very complicated, but there are also some easy steps to take for people who are maybe a little intimidated by it. So it's a place that you can kind of stick your toe in and gradually find your way around. There are many social media platforms. The two of the most popular are Twitter and Facebook. Twitter is really more about short messages. It's 140 characters or less, very pithy messages. I was watching the Olympics a week ago, and I noticed that Bob Costas's eye was kind of red, and he was wearing glasses, and I thought, well, this seems strange. Let me check Twitter. And all of a sudden, I knew everything about Bob Costas's left eye. And in fact, his left eye has a Twitter account itself. So if you need immediate news, Twitter is the place to go. Facebook, on the other hand, moves a little bit slower. There's less turnover than Twitter. Facebook is by far and large the largest social media platform. It's also the best place to share pictures and video, and we've really found that our audience is using Facebook. That is the platform that for CFCO we've really honed in on. We still have a Twitter presence, but it's mild compared to what we do on Facebook. You can see some of the other platforms here that you may or may not have used. We use YouTube for some videos. And the joke at the bottom with Google Plus is that it hasn't really picked up except for Google employees. So the comment is that you'd only say I'm a Google employee who eats donuts. Anyways. Just some general facts, mostly around Facebook. A fourth of the world is on social media, and Facebook dominates this with 1.2 billion users. They're finding a lot of trends, and Facebook is affecting purchasing behavior, which is really important for us because that's where people are spending their money, and we want that money to go to charities. Sorry. So again, because of these statistics, this is why we've really honed in on Facebook as our major target for social media. And along with that, on Facebook, you can do a lot of advertising, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We also had a lot of empirical data that oversees the DoD, who's really our audience. Their major tool was on Facebook. Twitter really just hasn't picked up over there. And so there's not a lot of point for us to spend too much time on that. So from now on, I'm going to really hone in on Facebook. So if you hear me talking more about that, that's kind of, I just set you up for talking mostly about Facebook, and I might throw a few things in regarding Twitter. But as administrators of the CFC, what's really important is this worth my time? Is this actually going to drive donations, or is it just me playing on Facebook and seeing how many likes I can get? It's important for us to know that there's going to be an end result and that social media is worth the time and or the money that you spend. And there's a few things to keep in mind when you're doing the analysis of this. It can be a hard thing to really show. I think marketing always has that challenge of showing direct correlation. Social media gives you a lot of analytics, but it doesn't always show your direct correlation with dollars raised. But you want to remember a few things. One is that your reach, how many people are actually seeing your posts, is just the beginning of engaging a donor. So your reach those are all potential donors. Then the more they engage, the closer they become to actually being a true donor and making that donation that year. So it takes a lot of time to actually grow that audience from people who are just seeing your posts to engaging to actually doing what you suggest and making their donation. And the other thing about social media is that it really should be a piece of a whole marketing strategy. There should be a lot of synergy between your website, between your print collateral, and between your social media. And the great thing is that you can really cross-promote on these. On our website, we talk about our Facebook presence. On our print collateral, we talk about our Facebook presence. So it's really great if you can cross-promote and have a lot of synergy between those pieces. But social media, it can't be the only place. It has its downfalls as well as any other marketing tool, so it needs to all work together. So now I'm going to get into a little more of the strategy and what we did this past year that really worked for us, and hopefully will work for you as well. The first thing you really need to do to dive deeper, and especially if you're going to invest more time and possibly money, is to set goals from the outset. And we really looked at two different goals. One was to expand our donor base, and the other was to engage our CFC community. In preparing for this meeting, I went and looked at a lot of the other CFC pages, and what I noticed was there's a lot of posts about events and a lot of campaign posts, which is great, and people love to see their face or be tagged in it. But the problem is that's really only engaging your CFC community. It's not reaching out into a new donor base. And I think social media really has the power to do that, to touch people who may not have any other connection points with the CFC. So you need to make sure that if that is your goal in the beginning, that everything else is driven from that goal, that you're actually going out and reaching new people and not just talking to the same people that you already see at your events, that you already know are campaign workers. But really doing some things that are innovative to reach a new audience. From these goals, then you can develop your messaging, whether it be things like education on CFC, campaign news, event recaps. A lot of our messaging also went outside of CFC, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then looking at some of the numbers. Where do you want to be? What does success look like at the end of the campaign? Is it just likes, or is it engagement as well, getting them closer to that point where they're really donating? Once you have your goals set, then you really want to take a deeper look into your audience. Who are they? For us, our audience are those serving overseas in the military or Department of Defense. And so we did a lot of thinking. We talked a lot with our team that are overseas about who are these people? What are they interested in? For us, our audience is really patriotic. They care a lot about the U.S. They care a lot about charities. They see need very closely. And so we were really able to tap into that. For you, your audience is maybe a little bit different because you're local, but think about, are they passionate about the local sports team? Are they passionate about the snow that may be coming in or whatever it is? Think about your audience and what types of things resonate with them and learn to focus your content in on some of that. Also think about who influences them. I would say probably one of our greatest audiences are spouses. They make and drive a lot of giving decisions, and so it's important that we engage with them and we talk with them. And I would say probably more than half of our audience that we have likes from are probably spouses. They may not be the actual giver. But that's really important to capture that audience. Get them nagging and encourage them to, get the gifts rolling. You also want to keep in mind what restrictions your audience may have. As I mentioned, we didn't start our presence really until 2010, and that was because our audience didn't have access to social media, and so there was really no point in us spending time on that. So make sure you know what restrictions they have. Are they able to use social media in their workplace, or is it just at home, in which case that may change your messaging. And once you know your audience, then you can really develop your voice. And this is how you talk on social media. The great thing about social media is that it is a little bit less formal. And I think it's easier for people to actually write posts because they don't have to be so professional. At the same time, you want to keep things professional. You want to check for spelling errors and grammar errors and all of those things. You want to keep that professional voice. But it's helpful to think of writing and posting like you might talk. Like you might actually be in a social situation. What types of things would you say? I think it's helpful to think of your favorite campaign worker or representative. What types of things do they like? What types of things do they talk about with the campaign? Use them as an example of who you're writing to. And make sure to be relevant to your audience. Make sure what you're talking about is actually interesting. Be positive. This is a great opportunity for us to brag on federal employees. Don't get into arguments or negative. You don't want that to be your platform. And you do see that a little bit, probably more on individual pages, but nobody really enjoys reading about people complaining. So don't edge on that. Now getting into some of the nitty-gritty, and I'll go into more detail of some of the topics on this slide. But first of all, I would encourage you to plan, but don't over-plan. In 2010, when we started social media, I was required to write all of our posts for 2 weeks, and then it would go to my boss. My boss would look through and edit it, and then it would go to her boss, and then she would look through and edit it, and then it would come back to me, and then I was allowed to post those things every day. That, while maybe efficient and probably less errors, was really stripping social media of its strength, which is spontaneity and that two-way conversation. So there are certainly ways to plan, and I'll talk about a little bit of that, but make sure that you're not over-planning and stripping social media of what the strength it really has. Keep your posts short. 80 characters or less gets a lot more engagement. People don't want to spend time forever reading your posts. Use lots of photos. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Ask questions. That actually brings out that engagement, brings people up that ladder. And the rule of thirds. So take your content and use about a third of your content on your business, on the CFC, another third of your content on industry-related things. So this could be on philanthropic giving. This could be on the military. And then another third on more you, and this is where you get to be a little more personal. And I'd also call this kind of more fluff posts, but sometimes it helps people engage with you and get them to actually hear your messages. So getting into some of the implementation, as I just talked about, photos were crucial, and I would say this is probably one of our top reasons that we had such an increase of likes. I don't think we had any post that did not have a photo associated with it. This was like really important. And we're back. So make sure you add photos to your content. I did want to show you this example. The post on the bottom left is from a Veterans Day post that I think I posted in 2011. I'm sure I thought it was great at the time. It says, "On this Veterans Day, we salute those who have served." It got 1 like, which might have been from my own personal account, I don't know. Then the other post is from 2013, and what an awesome picture that's with this post. And we got, I think, 53 likes, 2 shares, and 2 comments and 4 shares on this post. I think we actually did some advertising around it, so a lot more people saw the post. But you guys can tell just looking at it. What would you rather read? What draws your attention to it? The great thing about photos is that it takes seconds to attract attention. So. The other thing is to ask questions. This is a way to actually move people from just seeing your page to engaging with you. There's a lot of different ways you can ask questions. One of my favorites is to just caption a photo. And we've gotten a lot of feedback on our posts from when there's a funny picture and people are just giving us a caption. For example, this one, I think it's a satellite phone in this picture. We had reshared it from the Air Force, and people posted on our page some things like, "You bought what? Yes, a deep dish supreme pizza you deliver. That'd be great." Can you hear me now? So these are more of those like 1/3 kind of fluff posts, but it gets people engaged. It also means the more that people engage with you, the more your posts rise on people's newsfeed. So it basically means you're going to be seen more often if people are engaging with your posts. So as I've mentioned, this thirds piece is really important. And I have to say this is probably not our strength as CFCO. We tend to be really strong on the business and industry related side, and we haven't done as much of kind of like the more personal posts. But if you're thinking about the business side, should be about CFC. So these are your messaging, your main giving content. You're asking people to give. You're talking about how many charities you have. You're talking about the good work that the CFC does. All of those things fit into that business third. Then industry related was probably more of our strength in that we have there's great content from the military. And so we have a lot of content that we reshare and pull from military news. We also, when the disaster hit, that was another industry-related type news that we shared a lot of. And then the third is more information about maybe your staff, your campaign workers, a little bit more personal. This, again, can touch into maybe the campaign events where you're tagging people who might have showed up. The only thing to keep in mind with this is that it still needs to be relevant to your audience. If you're saying, like, hey, it's snowing crazy, that no one really cares, you might as well say that on your individual page. But you somehow want to tie it into your audience so your audience still thinks it's interesting, and they still can understand why the CFC would be putting this information out as opposed to some individual. I love this third post. This was actually done in 2012, but we had this sweet girl, Alicia, who would answer the phones, and a lot of people had commented that they liked her. So we showed her face up there and just said, hey, this is who's answering your phone. And that's very relevant to people calling in, and she was like the sweetest thing, so it was really easy to push out, and people loved it. So that's an example of something you could do in that category. How often you post can affect how much people engage with you. If you're posting too much, they're going to take you off their news feed and be annoyed. I did that with my sister-in-law. So, probably shouldn't have said that. We tended to post about 1 to 2 times a day during the weekdays. On Fridays, we would kind of sign off for the weekend. We found that our audience really wasn't that engaged over the weekend. That may be different for you, but for us, that wasn't that important. So we really kept our posts down to Monday through Friday, and we would post 1 to 2 posts a day. What's more important than more posts, lots of posts, is having really dynamic content. If you can have great content, those great pictures where people are engaged, that's going to go a whole lot further than throwing out a lot of information that people don't really care about. And in the off season, we struggle with this a little bit. You still want to maintain a presence. You want to keep that audience still going. So you don't want to disappear completely. I think you can bring your posts down to maybe 1 or 2, 2 or 3 a week. So you still have a presence, but there's just less content to push out, to be honest. We've had to be a little bit creative in doing maybe like sneak peeks of new marketing material, or you'll have to get a little creative during this downtime, but don't go completely silent because it'll be really hard to pick that audience back up when the campaign time does hit. As I've mentioned, this kind of hits on this like plan but don't over plan. You can schedule posts, and I think this is really important to do. You just need to make sure that you're leaving some time to go back in and engage, and you're leaving some time to, I just lost my train of thought. Anyways, schedule posts. There's a few ways that you can do it. There's some third-party tools you can use, like Hootsuite, and there's a few others. But actually now most of the platforms have tools within themselves to schedule posts, and Facebook is great about that. In the bottom left-hand corner of your status update, there's a little clock there. When you click that, it'll give you, it'll open up the information of when you want to schedule the post. You hit schedule. It's really easy They also provide an activity log so you can go in and actually see all of the posts that are scheduled. And we specifically did theme days that I'll talk to you about in a minute. And those were the ones that we would schedule most often. And it takes a little work off your plate, and it helps you to be able to dump a lot of information maybe in on Monday, get things set. And then you only have to come in and spend maybe 15 minutes a day to make sure to see what's going on your page. But it should take down some of the effort of keeping up with social media. I keep mentioning this, but just increasing your likes is not, it's not the end solution. It's really just the first step. So engagement is really crucial for a lot of reasons. It's getting your potential donors closer to that donor level. It also, the more engagement a post have, the more it will show up on people's feeds. So it actually plays into the logarithm that Facebook uses to put messages up on different feeds. So it's very important. There's a few ways that people can engage with you. They can comment on a post or your page, they can share, and they can also like. And I just wanted to point out a few. We had this one post that I think it said something like we're almost to 10 million. And this was like really satisfying as a social media person that 2 people wrote I pledged or we pledged, because you're like, yeah, we made it to the top of the triangle. But another great post is when people are posting about the CFC. It's one thing when we're pushing out information, but it's great if our audience is then pushing it out. It's again that word of mouth. And it also, some people will probably trust other people talking about the CFC more than maybe us who work for the CFC and get paid to do this. So the one comment that I really liked that touched on that was a vet talked about, said, let's get to $10 million. Be sure to know where your money is going. Thank you all. God bless. We thought that was a great post. He was really engaged. He gave some good information. It was very positive. And then if they're engaging with us, you need to continue the conversation. It needs to be a two-way street, and then you need to respond and or be responding to other people's posts. This, again, is an area that we could probably do better as the CFCO and Global Impact in responding and communicating more. So there's so many ways to do it. Again, the liking and sharing and commenting. 2 ways that we did respond this past year was one woman, Holly, wrote about spending her birthday giving training for CFCO, and we loved that. That was just, she seemed very dedicated. So we wrote back to her and said, thanks for helping people on your birthday. Another comment, we had someone ask a question on this post you see on the right, and they asked who their POC, their point of contact, was for this year, which is great. They know they're going to the right source to get an answer, and this is why it's really important to monitor your page and know what's going on. Because had we left that there, that does not look good. But we saw that, and for the nature of our campaign, their POC is different depending on which installation they're at. So we just asked them to message us privately, and we would figure out that information, and that happened, and we were able to give this person the information they needed, which is great. It's great to see that the social media was really working in that case. But it leads to really being important to keep monitoring your page. One challenge that we've had is how do we interact with charities? How, there's a lot of regulations around not prioritizing any charity. So what does this look like in the social media forum? And what we've decided to do is that we don't actually like or engage with any charities. We kind of separate that, but we do leave it as an open forum, and we let charities post on our page, and every charity has the same opportunity to do so. So this has been a little bit of a challenge for us because at first I think we wanted to like all these charities because they're part of our campaign, and then we kind of went through and unliked all these charities and realized that it was probably giving some prioritization to some charities who may not even have a social media presence or whatever it is. So that's how we go about the regulations, and I would encourage people to do the same. The only kind of side note to that is that Global Impact, as the PCFO, is so intimately involved with the campaign that we don't post on CFCO's page. I feel like that's a little too close, but other than that, any other charity can post, or participate in the page. And some charities do take advantage of this, and they put their CFC number on our posts, and it just sits there. We don't respond to it. So another reason that we had this huge boost of likes is because we were able to spend some money in advertising. And I realize that most of the campaigns are not as big as ours, and so you probably may not even have any money for advertising. But bear with me, I'll show you what a little bit of money can do. But this really was really helpful for us. We took, I think, about 30% of our print advertising dollars and moved them over to Facebook because we were really able to target our audience, and we felt like it was a really good ROI. So the great thing about Facebook advertising is that there's a few different ways to do it. You can get people to just like your page. You can advertise on applications. What we did is we advertised on specific posts. So what it is you take a post and they call it boosting your post. So you put some money behind the post, and what it does is it shows up in more people's news feeds. So it's not just the people who liked you, it could be people's news feeds that you target. So a certain gender, age, interest. So we're going to be that advertising that shows up on their news feed. A little bit of money here goes a long way, and I'll show you that in a minute. And the great thing is you can really target. You can target by age, gender, interests, location. They can pull the IP addresses of where people are logging in and read that of their location. So it's a very complex. Facebook has really made their advertising very detailed and complex. It's easy to do on our end, but the backside of it is very complex. So I think it's a really great thing to take advantage of. And I wanted to show you that this was the first post in 2013 that we advertised, and it was just kind of a re-engagement post saying that we're coming back. We have a new strategy. We've been quiet, but we're going to be around for a little while. And this was only $50. $50 got us a reach of 14,283 pages. So that means we showed up on that many news feeds. It resulted in 146 likes, 3 comments, and 1 share. So this is pretty amazing for $50. And right now we're in that planning stage, and I would encourage you to look at your budgets, and maybe you have some tchotchke money that might be better spent in testing out some advertising, or maybe there's some other areas that you can consider doing a little bit of advertising. It's a great piece to also test. You can go in and see if it's working for you. If it's not, then you decide how much money goes into it. You decide beforehand. You can cap it. It's pretty easy to manage. If you don't have any money or you want to promote your social media page more, there's a few other things you can do. Some examples are email signatures. For Global Impact, our IT team has gone in, and every person that works at Global Impact has our social media icons in the bottom of our email signature. Also, sharing other people's posts push you out more to a different audience. You can ask people, be a little more creative and ask people to donate their status. So I would encourage this with maybe campaign workers. If they go down to an event, encourage them to mention you in their status. That way you're reaching their networks. You can also email volunteers from Facebook. This was more popular in the beginning of Facebook, and I don't see it used as often, but there's still a tool within Facebook that you can drop in a bunch of people's emails, and it will email to them to like you on their Facebook page. I would only suggest doing this to people who are already engaged with CFC. So if it's your campaign workers and you want to make sure that they like you, I think that is appropriate to email them and remind them to engage with you in that way. Not sure what happened there, but monitoring. What? Right. So what's really important is the more you're going to be in front of people, the more people will comment on your page. And hopefully there are positive comments, but there will be some negative comments. We saw some very negative comments this past year. We say for about 1 negative comment, you've got 10 positive ones, so it's completely worth it, but it is really important to watch and see what's going on your page. This, again, helps you in responding and engaging, but it also keeps you alert for if something is inappropriate on your page. It's very easy to remove it. If something is really inappropriate or rude, there's a little X in the top of the post, and go to that X, click it, and there's a few options you have. You can hide the post so just your viewers don't see it. You can delete it so nobody can see it. You can block the user, the person who posted it. You can also report it. And I will say that we do block people, and we have reported things to Facebook before if it's really inappropriate. And that does happen, especially with advertising where you're reaching kind of different audiences, and there may be some people that are just haters out there. if it's a semi-negative comment, but you can kind of make it a good message, or you just want to leave it sitting up there. If you're stripping away all of the comments, people won't trust you as much. And it actually says something, I think, to leave up comments that may be semi-controversial as long as they're not inappropriate or rude. And an example of this is this person commented, "I wish I could," we had asked people to give in this post, "I wish I could, but I barely make it on my own pay." Fair enough. That's a fair comment. It's not like, yay, CFC, but it shows that people know what we're about, and they weren't able to give, and so we left that comment be, and we could have even commented back on it, although you never know where that leads. But we just left that there. We felt like it kind of made us seem more personal to leave that and not take it out everything. I saw all of the slides are like this. Oh. I saw a presentation by Brooke McMillan, who does social media for Livestrong in crisis communications, and you can imagine she's had quite a few crazy years, and she talked about pivoting your message, and I liked this quote. She wrote, "Even in really, really difficult times," and I'm talking really difficult, "the haters are going to be there, and they're always going to be there and think it's fun. But it's really a great way to pivot and share your mission." So I'd encourage you, before you click and delete posts, really challenge yourself. Is this something I can respond with a positive message? Is this something we can just let sit up there? Don't just delete everything because you feel like it's not really what you want people to see. Sorry, I don't know how to help this, but again, technology has its downfalls. So measurement is really important, and I would encourage you to measure all throughout the year. If you're just measuring at the end of a campaign, you can't make any changes, and you have to wait a whole nother year before you can make those changes. There's a lot of tools that you can use to measure. There's a lot of third-party tools. Google Analytics is one of the best, and there's also Hootsuite, I mentioned earlier, has a whole analytics tool. Facebook actually has a very robust measurement tool called Insights, and you can find out a lot of information about your reach. Some of the slides that I've showed you already were having to do with that. It'll also talk about your engagement, and you can look at specific posts. How does specific posts do? You can compare between years. All of this is really important information. When you're looking at this, I would encourage you to look at trends, what is working, what is increasingly working, and look for some outliers. I was looking over our results a few weeks ago, and I came across this little chart at the bottom, and it's our net likes, which seems great, right? And then I look at it, and I'm like, there's something very odd about this. In October, we had 1,000 people unlike our page. And I think you guys can probably realize why that was. And maybe they were blaming the wrong people for the shutdown, but they were engaged, and they felt like this was their voice to express that they were not happy about the shutdown, or they're not happy with the government, whatever it is. So not great that we lost people on the likes, but very interesting that our social media is tracking with the trends of what's going on in the government. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it, but it was nice that people were able to voice their opinion in some small way. And anyways, I thought that was an interesting statistic that I ran into. A few other things for measurement: make sure to go back, especially if you're spending some money in advertising, pull some of these measurement results and bring it back to your LFCC. Show them what is working, what's not working, how you're using your social media strategy to impact donors. Use that information and share it around. And also, when you're looking at this, make sure you're seeing what works. If something works, do it more. If Tuesday posts are getting you a lot of engagement, post on Tuesday. If people like to see, one thing we have, people love to see the dollar amount. We have the thermometer on our website, but they love to see it on social media. So when we post how much we've raised, that was getting a lot of engagement, and so we started doing that more often. Every million or every whatever we would post, because people were liking that. We're in the home stretch. I have a few more tips for you that didn't fit in anywhere else in the presentation, but might be helpful. The first one is when to use a hashtag. Hashtags are now kind of the rage. They used to only be a Twitter thing, and now they are also a Facebook thing. They are way overused on Facebook. And if you want to, you can see Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake do a little hashtag skit on YouTube. So it's all over social media. Basically what hashtags are is when you add this symbol before words that are consistent, no spaces, it creates like a link, and it will connect with anyone else or any other posts that have that same hashtag. Again, I think this is overused, again, probably by my sister-in-law, but it can be very useful. For global impact, we use it a lot when there's an international day that we want to connect with. Giving Tuesday is one that has a really successful hashtag. But I would encourage you to set a hashtag for the beginning of your campaign year. So maybe it's, for us, it'd be like 2014 CFCO. And then pass that to your campaign workers. Have other people use that hashtag. That way it's picking up some generation. And but I wouldn't go crazy on it. I wouldn't do it for every event. But I think if you set one from each campaign year, that's kind of what we've done, and it seems to be successful. Post on paydays. This is a little tip that we found out was very effective. When people have money, they're more likely to give. So when it's sitting in their pocket and they just got it, then they're more likely to give to charities. And so we would have really strong giving messages on paydays. I mentioned this a few times. We did theme days. Again, this helps with planning and it helps with efficiency, and actually had some of our most engagement were theme day posts. We did Inspirational Monday, where we'd, mostly it was just a great picture that we would share. Art Tuesday, we have, with the CFCO, we have an art contest for elementary school students around the world, and so we would display some of this artwork on Tuesdays, and people loved that, which was great. And then Success Story Wednesday, we would take success stories from our website and throw them on there on Wednesdays. The nice thing about this too is it gets your audience in the pattern of knowing what to expect from you. They look forward to these things. And again, it helps you plan a little bit and manage your time. Website banners are really important. It's part of the branding that you have. And I would encourage you to be professional about these banners. I have this like pet peeve of people who distort pictures, and this seems to always happen on banners. It kind of drives me crazy. So don't distort your pictures. Find out what the pixel resolution is, or use the tool as it should be, but don't stretch it or pull it or make it fit, because it just doesn't work. It takes away from just looking like a professional organization. It's great to focus in on people or work. You don't want to have too many faces in this. I think it loses its strength. So we've tried to, this probably isn't even our best banner. We had some others that were stronger, but we try to focus in on some emotional, some action, and get a picture that people really liked. And we would also, it's a way to keep your page fresh. So we would change these probably only every month, but you could change them more often if you had some great pictures to push out. Re-engage, if hopefully this presentation is really inspiring you and you're going to go back and make some new strategy, and then you should tell your audience that you're back and you're going to be talking to them more and really reintroduce yourself to this audience and let them know what to expect. So we did that with this post that we did push out for advertising, and just let them know that you are going to be around and saying more, and they should tune in and listen to you. And finally, have fun. I will say, when I first started doing social media, even though I had my own individual pages, I told you I'm not like quite a technology geek, so it was kind of intimidating to me. But I started to realize that people do this on their free time, and we get to do it for a job, so that should be enough to really get me going. And I also found, I get to go through the news feed and see what I think is interesting, and hopefully most of the things I think are interesting may be interesting to our audience too. So I use it as a time to catch up on some news and entertainment and see what I could repurpose and try and actually have fun with this. It's a great tool that people are using outside of work. So, and it's causing an impact. It's a way for us to really reach potential donors. It's a way for us to raise more money and to help those people in need. And so it's a strong tool, and I'd really encourage you to have fun with it and to really use it. And that's all I have for you today, but we do have some time. Oh, great. Okay, we have not too much time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes for some questions, and there's 2 microphones here if you'll speak in the microphones.
On your photos, did you get them contributed? Did you subscribe to a photo service, or what were the sources of your photos?
We're kind of lucky because the military opens up their photos for people to use. So we have access. If part of your audience is military, then you can go to their sites. If you go to just defense.gov, defenseimagery.mil is another one, and you are free to download their photos and use them. There's DVIDs is another one, and we have a relationship with them, so I think that may be a little bit different, but we're able to also download their photos. That's part of our marketing overall from the beginning of the campaign. We pull all of those photos and we use them. But there's definitely defense ones that are out there. I know we're unique because that's really our only audience, so we just run with those. There might be some other ways to find photos that are free to use. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's Mandy. She's part of our PCFO. Yeah, we do get, for success stories or for campaign events, all of those pieces, those come from the field often. So we're using photos from all over. But just, you kind of do need an abundance of photos if every post is going to have a photo. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beverly with Heart of Alabama CFC. We have a small Facebook page, it's about 80 likes, mostly I think charitable orgs that participate in the campaign. But my question is, I'm energized, I want to re-engage, I want to get it going. Will I see any dollar results in giving? Can you actually see that when you re-engaged your social media campaign that there was an increase in donations because of that? Because we're a staff of 2, well, 1.5, one full-time, one part-time.
Right. Kind of. Yes, I think we could correlate some of our posts with some high giving days. So for us, there were some connections there. The other thing that I think is really important is to send people back to your e-giving page. And if you hook up to Google Analytics, it will tell you how many people actually came from social media to your e-giving page. And we are our second highest referral. So behind Google, people who are coming to our website are coming from social media. And I think that is a pretty powerful note that actually a lot of the donors are coming from that source. So it's hard to tie it directly to say like these people who liked the page made a donation unless you're seeing some random comments that people say I pledged. But I do think that it's worth it, and I do think if you pull some of those analytics behind it and maybe test it out a little bit, you'll be able to see if you're actually driving people from Facebook to your website or to your e-giving platform. Any other questions or tips? If anyone has any tips that's worked for them, that also it's free to share.
Just because I can't pass up an opportunity for an open mic. Robert Jennings,
Hold
Greater
on.
Olympic Peninsula Campaign. You talked early on about when you first started this process, you weren't real social media savvy.
Right.
And some of us orphs are also not real social media savvy and don't have necessarily the time to monitor the posts because, you know, we don't want the inappropriate stuff getting posted on our Facebook page. And so I think it's wonderful that you increased the 17,000. I'm glad Beverly asked about did that translate into dollars, but how do we educate ourselves to be able to utilize the media if we don't have the time to devote or aren't already tech savvy? How do we find those people that are and get them involved?
There's a few ways. I mean, one could be just interns. Interns tend to know way more than I do about social media, to be honest. So you might want to look at some of those tools. I think if you're setting a general marketing strategy for your campaign, if you're already looking at some messages that you're going to use in your marketing materials, let those drive into social media. Use what you already have. You know, if you're already pulling things for your website or you're already doing some small pieces of marketing, pull them into social media so you may be reaching kind of a different audience on social media. But I would encourage, I mean, sometimes kids might even have you might want to be careful, but sometimes even getting your kid to look at social media at Facebook and say like, you know, how do you post this? How do you schedule a post? How do you do these things? Walk me through this. They might be the best teachers of this tool. Yeah, okay, so the time commitment, especially if you look forward and you do some theme days and you kind of have a calendar so you know what you're doing, your time commitment, I would say, would be on a Monday. If you're scheduling forward, you might spend half an hour. And then I would say if you spent 5 to 10 minutes every other day and just looked at your own page, saw if anything's going on in your page, and then maybe repost someone else's or a piece that you'd already written, I think you can really get by doing, maybe 30 minutes, 30 minutes on a Monday, and then 5 to 10 minutes the rest of the day. Which again, I realize that can still add up and is tough for a smaller campaign. But I would also say try it out. See if it's working. See if you're getting give it a little bit of time. And then if it's not and it's wasting your time, do marketing elsewhere. If it's not going to hit your audience, then it may not be the answer for everyone. Okay, last question.
Hi, it's really not a question. You said if anybody had any tips.
Yeah.
I'm Rama Latin from the Navy. And I'd just like to say that social media has worked wonders for us. We've put, videos of, just regular folks from the organization, videos, posters, anything dealing with your campaign advertising. It's, immensely recommended for you to, put some sort of social media, because really that's your link to reaching out all your donors. So for us, it's worked wonders. And the NCA has helped us a lot with posting a lot of our campaign videos, anything that's coming from our outside of the headquarters onto the website. So if you don't have a website and you're a small campaign, recommend you get one, create one, talk to your IT person to see if they can help you. One of the things that came out of one of our campaigns were as you log into your computer, some of the organizations were able to put like a flash page as they log in, maybe once out of the day, put a flash page up, and it's, talking about the CFC. So if they can do that once out of the day, that's another way of reaching out. So social media is heavily recommended on our end.
Great, that's great to hear. Another thing that we probably don't do enough of, and being all in the same room is a great place to share. We can share each other's content. We're all working together for the same purpose. A lot of our messages are going to be very similar. That's content that's already sitting there that we can repost and have some synergy between the CFCs. And again, I would say CFCO really hasn't done any of that, but I think we'll look more into that, and that should help having some of the content that you need to push out. Again, thank you for having me.